Now that you have safely transported the AOV assembly to the workshop bench, you may continue to disassemble the AOV. Click Next to continue. To completely remove the spring adjuster, turn it counterclockwise until you can remove it. Select the wrench from the toolbox and click on the spring adjuster to remove. With the spring adjuster removed, you can now easily remove both the spring seat and the actuator spring through the bottom of the yoke. Click on the spring seat to remove it. With the spring seat removed, you can now remove the actuator spring through the bottom of the yoke. Tag bottom end of spring after removal. Click on the actuator spring to remove it. Now it is safe to remove the upper diaphragm casing. Before removing any of the casing bolts, match mark the upper and lower casings as needed. Click on the match mark to confirm. To remove the upper casing, use a wrench to remove the casing bolts. Select the wrench from the toolbox and click on each of the casing bolts until they are all removed. With all the casing bolts removed, you can now remove the upper casing. Click on the upper casing to remove it. With the upper casing removed, use a wrench to remove the diaphragm casing cap screw. Select the wrench from the toolbox and click on the diaphragm casing cap screw to remove it. Now you can freely lift the top diaphragm plate out of the casing. Click on the top diaphragm plate to remove it. Now you can freely lift the diaphragm out of the casing. Click on the diaphragm to remove it. Under the diaphragm is the bottom diaphragm plate, ready to be removed. Click on the bottom diaphragm plate to remove it. With the bottom diaphragm plate removed, you can remove the actuator stem through the bottom of the yoke. Be sure to pull straight to have the stem slide smoothly out of the stem bushing. Click on the actuator stem to remove. Match mark the lower casing with the yoke before you start removing any of the casing bolts. Click on the match mark to confirm. To remove the lower casing, remove each of the lower casing bolts. Select the wrench from the toolbox, then click on each of the lower casing bolts and repeat to remove them all. With all the lower casing bolts removed, you can remove the lower diaphragm casing. Once the lower casing has been removed, the gasket is loose and easily removed. Click on the gasket to remove it. To remove the stem bushings, you first need to remove a small snap ring using a pair of pliers. Select the pliers from the toolbox and click on the snap ring to remove it. Since the stem bushing has a tight fit to the yoke due to its O-rings, tap on the underside of the bushing to loosen and remove it. Select the hammer and brass rod from the toolbox and click on the stem bushing to loosen and remove it. Congratulations! You have completed this task. Click Next to continue. Click on the main menu to open the task list, the About page, or to exit the application.